My husband convinced me to go see his parents for a week in another state. I had two reasons for not wanting to. For one, I just had a baby 1.5 months ago. I have postpartum depression, PPD, and I'm really still not feeling well. I don't want to be around anyone, especially his mom, because I find it exhausting. And secondly, they have an unruly Rottweiler that they have no control over. He's not aggressive, but he's destructive, jumps on people, and barks excessively. So I didn't want to go at all, but he assured me that we would be staying in a hotel and all would be well. There are only 2 hotels within a 1.5-hour radius, deep wooded area in Maine, and I reminded him, asked him several times if he booked the hotel. He said he was handling everything and told me to stop worrying so much. So anyways, we got to Maine last night, and lo and behold, the hotel closed its office doors at 8 p.m. It's a bed and breakfast, and the owners live in the house. It's advertised as all doors closed by 8 p.m. right on their website, which I didn't know. We didn't get there until 10 because he was catching up with his family. We ended up back at his parents' house, and they gave us the guest room. I brought the baby's bassinet, so I set that up, and we went to bed. Well, the next morning, their unruly dog came in and pissed all over the bassinet. Luckily, my baby was not on it, so I'm really angry and tell my husband to bring me to the hotel because I'm 2 seconds from losing my cool. I told him to shut the door when he came out, but he didn't do it, so it's his fault. Well, he drives me to the hotel, and lo and behold, he didn't book in advance, so there's no vacancy. He said he assumed there would be openings because of how remote it is. So I call the only other hotel 1.5 hours away, and nope, they're fully booked too. I told him I just want to go home at this point, but he refuses and says we can just stay at his parents'. I told him fine, but you're sleeping on the floor the entire time. I told him I won't be putting our baby in that bassinet, considering we can't clean it without a carpet cleaner, which his parents don't have. And I told him he's not sleeping in the bed with me and the baby because the bed is a double, and I don't trust that one of us won't roll over on the baby. Therefore, she needs her own side of the bed. Since he's the reason we are in this position, he will be the one making the sacrifice and sleeping on the floor. He tried arguing before going to bed tonight that he should be able to sleep on the bed too, and that I should just sleep with the baby in my arms, like I do when we have contact naps during the day. I told him that wasn't happening. 1-hour naps are much different than a full night's sleep, and I don't trust myself to sleep with her in my arms for that long, especially not being this exhausted. Before going to sleep, he said I was being a jerk and apparently punishing him for wanting to see his family. He accused me of trying to sabotage his trip. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot. I'm pretty sure he did all of this on purpose in order to stay at his parents' house. He has an entire week to spend with them, and he couldn't go check in and come back? Not to mention, he wants his child to sleep on dog piss. You're a good one, because frick him. I would have called an Uber and went home. Left his sorry, ignorant butt with his mommy and daddy. He made every attempt to keep you trapped there for a week, not letting you drive, keeping the rental in his name only, picking a place that closes early with a strict check-in. He knew what he was doing because there ain't no way all of this was a coincidence after coincidence. As soon as your spouse tells you to have your child sleep in dog piss, that's when you need to start reconsidering the marriage. He has me fricked all the way up. Comment 2. Not the idiot. My ex was like this, always promising to take care of arrangements and then not actually doing it. He had this wild idea that he would get a better deal if he walked in off the street. We went to a concert on the other side of the state, and he failed to make the hotel arrangements. He failed to understand it was the same weekend as the biggest rodeo in the state, and there were no rooms anywhere. When we finally found a room, he didn't want to pay their rate because, of course, it was outrageous. I told him, so help me God, if he didn't pay the rate, I'd be packing up when we got back home. Now, for the update. So it's been a month since the whole hotel fiasco in Maine, and let me tell you, things have only gotten crazier. After that night, I thought things couldn't get worse, but boy was I wrong. The next few days at my in-laws were a nightmare. The dog, who I'll call Chaos because that's what he brings, continued to be a terror. He chewed up one of my favorite shoes and even knocked over the baby's bottle, spilling milk everywhere. My husband, let's call him Dave, was trying to make things right, but it was like he was cursed with bad luck. He tried to fix the bassinet but ended up breaking it even more. I was at my wit's end. But the real jaw-dropper happened when Dave's ex-girlfriend, who still lives in the same town, showed up out of nowhere. Apparently, she's friends with Dave's sister, and she just happened to drop by while we were there. I could see the old spark in Dave's eyes when he saw her, and it made my blood boil. They chatted like I wasn't even there, laughing and reminiscing about old times. I felt invisible and unwanted. One night, after everyone had gone to bed, I caught Dave texting someone. He quickly turned off his phone when he saw me, but not before I saw the name at the top of the screen. It was her, the ex-girlfriend. My heart sank. I confronted him and we had a huge fight. He said they were just friends, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to it. The tension between us grew, and I felt more alone than ever. I was still struggling with PPD, and Dave's lack of support was breaking my heart. I needed him, and he was emotionally somewhere else. I started to resent him for convincing me to come on this trip, for not booking the hotel, for everything. Then one day, while Dave was out with his dad, I decided to take a walk to clear my head. I ended up at a small park, and who did I see there? Dave's ex, sitting on a bench, looking like she was waiting for someone. My heart was pounding as I watched from a distance, and then I saw Dave walking towards her. They hugged, and it wasn't just a friendly hug. It was long and it was intimate. I felt like I was going to throw up. I rushed back to the house, packed our things, and when Dave came back, I told him I saw everything. He tried to explain, but I wasn't having any of it. I told him I was taking the baby and going home. He begged me to stay, to talk it out, but I couldn't even look at him. The drive home was long and silent. I had never felt so betrayed. When we got home, I told Dave he needed to find somewhere else to stay. I couldn't be around him, not after what he did. He stayed with a friend, and we've been living apart ever since. It's been tough, dealing with the baby on my own, but I've had support from my family. They've been my rock through all of this. Dave has been trying to make amends, sending flowers and texts apologizing, but I can't just forget what happened. He broke my trust, and I don't know if we can ever get back to where we were. I've been focusing on my health and the baby, trying to get through each day. Dave's been seeing the baby, but it's always awkward between us. I can tell he wants to fix things, but I'm not ready. I don't know if I'll ever be. My daughter gets pregnant again by the same boy, so I tell her to move out, but she refuses. Our ultimatum finally makes her see sense. My 49-year-old female, daughter Josie, 19 years old, had her first baby when she was 15. My husband and I were devastated at first because we knew this was going to be a very difficult path for our daughter. We did all we could to give her intimacy education, but it wasn't enough and we couldn't turn back time. So all we could do was support her in what she wanted to do. My husband and I helped Josie take care of our grandson and encouraged her to finish high school. She never did because she said her priority was being a mother and she didn't have time to invest into finishing high school. We told her she would either go to school or get a job, but we weren't going to give her the option of doing neither for more than a year after she gave birth, so she got a part-time job at a hair salon. The father of my grandson, who was her age, would give her about $100 a month for baby-related stuff and would come over every couple of months to see his son, but that was all he did, although he lived in the same city as his son. A few days ago, Josie broke the news to us that she's pregnant again. The father is the same boy who got her pregnant the first time. My husband and I were angry. How can she get pregnant by that boy for the second time when he was very obviously not consistent or helpful with their first baby? And with Josie living with us rent-free and us having to take care of my grandson for her so she can work, go out, etc., this does not seem fair at all that she can add another baby into this mess. After a few days of thinking about it and discussing it with my husband, we decided to tell Josie to move in with the father of her children and raise the children together. She said they're not in a relationship, so they can't live together, and they wouldn't be able to afford it anyway. I told her she needs to figure something out because we, my husband and I, are not willing to raise another baby for her. She said, "You're never satisfied with anything I do. You told me to get a job, so I did. And now you're complaining that you had to raise the baby. You wouldn't have had to if I didn't have to work. I can't do both things at once, and I definitely can't raise 2 kids on my own and work. What 19-year-old can do that?" I replied. "We tried to teach you how to be responsible after your first baby, and we did all we could to be there for you. You clearly haven't learned a thing, and it's not our job to keep picking up after you. So before your baby arrives, discuss living arrangements with the father and figure something out." She has been crying and not talking to us since. She's called both sets of her grandparents to speak to my husband and me and change our minds so we can help her raise her babies. My husband's parents think we're being very harsh and punishing her for something that's already happened, which isn't helpful. They offered to take Josie and our grandson in, but Josie doesn't want to take her kids so far away from their dad. My in-laws are saying we'll regret abandoning our daughter and that we should be showing her a better example of unconditional love. I just don't know what more we could do without sacrificing our own lives. Am I the idiot? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. She needs to learn that life is hard when you make terrible choices. It's about time she learns that lesson. Update. I would like to add that giving the baby up for adoption should be considered. After all, unwed teenage mothers are adoption's bread and butter. I'm sure there's some couple out there desperate for a baby that is well prepared to take care of it. Comment 2. Not the idiot. Do not fold or she'll do the same thing again next year or the year after. She chose to procreate. Now she needs to deal with the consequences and take responsibility for her children. Sounds like she thought if she has another, you won't force her to work and you'll let her become a stay-at-home mom. Now for the update. Hey Reddit, it's me again, the mom with the 19-year-old daughter, Josie, who's pregnant for the 2nd time. I'm back with an update, and let me tell you, the past 3 days have been a roller coaster. So after Josie's tearful plea and the talk with both sets of grandparents, things took a turn. My husband and I were still firm on our decision, but Josie wasn't having any of it. She's been avoiding us, staying in her room most of the time, and when she does come out, it's like we're strangers living in the same house. But here's where it gets interesting. The father of Josie's kids, let's call him Mike, showed up out of the blue. He must have heard about the situation from Josie because he came ready to talk. He sat us down, and to our surprise, he had a plan. He's been working more hours and saving up, and he found a small apartment where he wants to move in with Josie and the kids. He said he realized he needs to step up. Now, you'd think Josie would jump at the chance, right? Wrong. She refused. She said she doesn't trust Mike to be consistent, and she's scared of being left alone if things don't work out. She's also worried about moving out and having to balance work, 2 kids, and a household. It's like she wants to be independent, but also doesn't want to let go of the safety net we provide. But wait, there's more. The next day, my husband's parents called again. They had a change of heart. They said they've been thinking, and they agree with us. They think Josie needs to learn to stand on her own 2 feet. They even had a talk with Josie, trying to convince her to take Mike's offer. But Josie's stubborn, just like her father was at her age. She's convinced she can't handle it all. Now, let's not forget about my parents. They've been on Josie's side from the start, and they're not happy with us. They think we're being too tough on her and that we should support her no matter what. They've been calling us nonstop, trying to guilt us into changing our minds. It's been exhausting. In the midst of all this, Josie's job at the hair salon is on the line. Her boss called and said Josie hasn't been showing up or calling in. If she doesn't get her act together, she's going to lose her job. And without a job, how is she going to support 2 kids? But here's the jaw-dropping moment. Yesterday, Josie finally came out of her room and asked to talk. She was calm, which was a change. She said she's been thinking and she's scared, but she's willing to try moving in with Mike. She asked for our help, not financially, but emotionally. She wants us to be there for her, to guide her through this transition. My husband and I were taken aback. We didn't expect her to come around so soon. We agreed to support her emotionally, but we made it clear that this is her chance to take responsibility. We're not going to step in and take over like we did with her first baby. So as of now, Josie and Mike are looking at the apartment together. They're trying to work out a budget and figure out how they're going to manage everything. It's a step in the right direction, but I can't shake the feeling that this is just the calm before the storm. My sister brags about her younger charm, but when her older husband cheats and files for divorce, she's not laughing anymore. Now she's playing hardball. My 48-year-old sister Caroline has spent the past 20 years bragging that because she is 10 years younger than her husband Ethan, that by the time she hits 40 plus, Ethan's intimacy drive will have plummeted too low to pursue others, and the 20-somethings won't want to date men past 35. Ethan was 34, and my sister a week from turning 24 when they first got together officially. At the time, 34-year-old Ethan was a newly minted senior VP with a 35-year-old wife, Emma, and a 4-year-old daughter. Ethan told her that Emma became a sanctimonious mommy type after she gave birth, stopped waking up at 5 a.m. to exercise, withheld intimacy, and became a negative, nagging shrew. Ethan physically left Emma for Caroline, but it was Emma who filed for divorce. Caroline was angry because she claims Emma was the one who filed for divorce, yet she's the one who became bitter and hostile after the divorce happened. For a while, I sympathized with Caroline because everybody criticized her relationship. However, it felt like Caroline and Ethan made the fact that Ethan was punching above his weight in terms of having a younger woman, their entire personality as a couple and individuals. I think it's because Ethan was poor into his early 20s and said he thought the best he could ever do was the sort of attractive, after a few beers, truck stop waitress. Back then, it was much easier for somebody with no connections to rise, and Ethan did. Then, after his divorce and before marrying Caroline, Ethan started his own firm and began making even more money. Caroline signed a prenup but maintained that it would never be used. Caroline used to laugh when Emma told her there's always younger women out there, and Caroline replied that she asked Ethan, and he said a 10-year age gap is gigantic to him, and that Caroline was the combination of somebody who he'd always see as much younger while also being able to relate to her. Caroline would also say, in a place where her stepdaughter could hear her saying it, that Emma has aged so much faster than Ethan and that she's likely regularly mistakenly referred to as her daughter's grandmother. Well, all this about, he will always see me as much younger, disappeared a few years ago. Caroline started becoming very withdrawn and miserable. She'd act out in ways, but Ethan would not even bat an eye at her antics. Then suddenly, just before the holidays, Ethan picked a fight by telling her her hand mannerisms are annoying and left the house. She found out he was living with a 24-year-old assistant he hired with no experience. Now, despite texts saying their 3 kids miss him and she doesn't deserve this when she's never denied him intimacy, he's filed for divorce. Caroline came to me crying and would go on rants about how Ethan will realize the 24-year-old sees him as grandpa. I rolled my eyes and said, "What did you expect?" And that I had no sympathy, when for years I've had to listen to her saying age gap detractors are bitter losers, and that Ethan will always see her as a prize. I also told her that 10 years is barely the starting point when it comes to trophy wife relationships. She got angry and screamed, "Are you calling me old when Ethan's pushing 60 and left? Am I the idiot?" Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. She played stupid games and won stupid prizes. She knowingly dated a married man. If he'll cheat with you, he'll cheat on you, and to brag about being a younger woman than his ex? What did she really think was going to happen once she started showing her age? Women who base their whole identity on being a trophy wife should be prepared to be put on the shelf after a few years. Comment 2. Not the idiot. Never date an older man who is married. He will always look for a younger version. It's a bummer your sister didn't learn this, but now she knows. Once a cheater, always a cheater. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the support on my last post. It's been a hectic week, and I've got some updates on the situation with my sister Caroline and her soon-to-be ex-husband Ethan. So, after Caroline stormed out of my place last time, things took an even crazier turn. She decided to confront Ethan at his office, which, as you can imagine, didn't go well. She burst in, demanding to speak to him, and found him in a meeting with none other than the 24-year-old assistant. Let's call her Jenny. Caroline lost it and started yelling about how Ethan was making a fool of himself. Security had to escort her out, and it was all anyone at Ethan's firm could talk about the next day. Now, let's rewind a bit to give you some context. Caroline has always been the type to hold grudges. I remember back in high school, she didn't speak to me for a month because I borrowed her sweater without asking. So her reaction to Ethan's new relationship wasn't just about the betrayal. It was about her pride being wounded. Meanwhile, Ethan has always had a knack for staying calm in the face of drama. It's probably what helped him climb the corporate ladder so quickly after his humble beginnings. He's the type who can charm his way out of any situation, and that's exactly what he tried to do with Caroline. After the office showdown, Ethan reached out to Caroline, suggesting they meet to talk things over. Caroline agreed, thinking this was her chance to win him back. But Ethan had a different plan. He offered her a compromise. He would increase the financial support outlined in their prenup if she agreed to keep their divorce proceedings private and civil. He didn't want any more public scenes damaging his reputation. Caroline was torn. On one hand, she wanted to drag Ethan's name through the mud for what he did. On the other, she knew that fighting him could mean less security for her and the kids. After a lot of back and forth, she reluctantly agreed to his terms. But here's where it gets even more twisted. Caroline started doing some digging and found out that Jenny wasn't just some random assistant. She was the niece of one of Ethan's biggest clients. It turns out Ethan had been grooming her for a position at the firm to secure a massive account. Caroline was furious, feeling like she'd been replaced by a business deal. In a surprising move, Caroline decided to use this information to her advantage. She went back to Ethan and renegotiated their deal. She demanded a higher settlement and a position at the firm. She argued that her knowledge of his personal and professional life made her an asset he couldn't afford to lose. Ethan, realizing the potential fallout if Caroline spilled the beans, agreed to her terms. So now Caroline is set to become a consultant at Ethan's firm, with a hefty payout to boot. She's been strutting around like she's won the lottery, but I can't help but feel like this is just a temporary fix. Caroline's always been about appearances, and I doubt working at her ex's company is going to be good for her in the long run. As for Ethan, he's been trying to keep a low profile since the deal with Caroline. He's always been good at separating his personal life from his business, but this time it seems like the lines are blurring. I heard from a mutual friend that he's been second-guessing his relationship with Jenny, worried that he's made a huge mistake. And what about Emma, Ethan's first wife? Well, she's been living her best life, focusing on her daughter and her career. She's been out of the drama for years, but I bet she's having a good laugh at Ethan's expense right now. As for me, I'm just trying to stay out of it. Caroline's been calling me nonstop, either bragging about her new job or crying about Ethan. It's exhausting. I've been trying to remind her that she needs to think about the kids through all of this, but she's too caught up in her own world. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.